Hey everyone, it's Dr. Kevin Young Chow, and welcome to part 2 of the Anki tutorial video. In this second part, we'll be taking a more in-depth look at what you can do with Anki, including pre-made decks, add-ons, customizing your studying timing, and some more tips and tricks. If you haven't already watched part 1, I recommend you pause this video, go back, watch that, and then come back to this, because we'll be building on some of the fundamental concepts that we've established in the previous video. Now, without further ado, let's get started. So last time I showed you how to make close deletion type cards, which, just as a quick reminder, are fill in the blank style cards. For example, San Diego is in California. Then we go ahead and highlight and hit Command-Shift-C as a shortcut on a MacBook to make a closed deletion. We'll highlight California, do the same thing. And then you see C1, C2, so two different closed deletion cards. Hit Add. And then we're going to go ahead and study the card, and there you go. So fill in the blank style, two flashcards just like that. Now we're going to take it one step further. So as you probably noticed, when you're studying this card, it's kind of vague. So we right now it's just blank is in California. Well, you know, if you have a bunch of cards and you haven't studied them for a while, you might be wondering, well, what is blank? What was I really going for with this card? And there is a way to kind of give yourself a hint. And that's what I'm going to go over right now. So let's go view that card we just make. I hit B to enter the browse menu. So here we have San Diego's in California. The way you add a hint is you hit colon, and then the hint. So city, for instance, it would be San Diego. And then here we'll put state. So now when we go back and look at our card, instead of a ... it now gives us this hint which says city. So now we get a better sense of what we were going for. Oh, which city was in California? Oh, well, in this case, I was talking about San Diego. San Diego is in what state? It's California. So as you can see, this is, can be quite helpful in giving yourself a nudge in the right direction when answering some of these questions. And when it comes to the hints, it's not limited to one word. It can be as many characters as you really want. So you could go city in southern part of state. You can hit preview. So city in southern part of state is in California. So boom, a lot more information than just a ... So it can be helpful in some occasions. The other thing I showed you last time was how to use the extra field, which again is kind of for background information. In this case, I'll just type in San Diego is very beautiful. And then if you were to view the card, it shows up on the back side of the card only when you're viewing the answer. Now, you can actually customize this area and actually, in fact, this area quite a bit when you're actually viewing the card. The way you do that is you go into cards, and this shows you the template of what exactly is going to be going on in your cards when you're viewing either the front and the back. So here on the front, you can see it says it's going to show the close text. The styling between all the cards with this heading is here. So you can see that we chose Arial font. This is a 20 pixel font size. It's aligned in the center, etc. And then on the back, you see the extra. So one thing I like to do is to make the extra text stand out a little bit more, especially when you're viewing a big card with a lot of information. So I like to italicize the extra font in order to make it stand out a little bit more. So when I'm reviewing quickly, it's easy to pick out what was the question and what's the background information. And I did that just by putting in a little less than symbol, I, and a greater than symbol. And then similarly on the end with a slash to go ahead and close it off. Other things you can modify in this menu are, for instance, the alignment. So right now it's the center, but if we say left, everything gets aligned to the left, which in some cases when you're viewing certain cards, it's easier, especially if you're making big lists. It's kind of awkward to have all the lists running down the middle. So I actually like to align my cards to the left. There's a lot of other things you can change here too. You can change the color of the close text, for instance, to red, and now instead of it populating as blue, it'll be red. As you can see, there's a lot that you can customize here. Next, we're going to kind of switch gears. Up till now, my tutorial has shown you how to create your own cards from your own study materials or just from scratch. And that's certainly a good way to learn. But fortunately, there are actually pre-made decks out there that other people have made to save you some time, especially if you're studying a topic that's pretty standardized and well covered, such as the MCAT exam or the USMLE Step 1 or Step 2 exams. And the way you can do that is you can go to Anki Web, which I actually have opened up, and you log into your account. And once you're logged in, you can actually see your Anki deck. And this is my personal Anki deck that I use for dermatology. But if you scroll all the way down, you can see this button called Get Shared Decks. And this is a gold mine. So here you're able to search for any top popular decks or topics that people will have put out there and uploaded onto Anki Web. For instance, we can type in USMLE Step 1 and see what pops up. So yeah, so there you go. So this one was made in 2014, it looks like. There's some pathology. This one is pretty popular, I know, for Step 1. So we can do the Zanki deck. Looks like there's some more recent ones. This one's in 2018. This is 2019. So let's just go ahead and click this one. So you just go ahead and click it, scroll down, hit download, and then it'll start downloading down here. And as soon as that is ready, so I'm going to click it to open it. And it will automatically start importing into your own Anki deck. And that is really incredible. So now you can start studying all of these Anki cards from someone else with none of the work that you had would otherwise have to put in to make your own cards. So it's pretty fantastic and can save a lot of time. And as you can see, you have a bunch of cards now from someone else. Now the alternative to downloading, you can actually upload your own decks as well. Not only to share with other people, but I think it's important to keep a backup on your own computer of your Anki cards, especially when you've dedicated a lot of time to making them. Because when you do sync them to the Anki server, they are backed up to the cloud, which hasn't failed yet, but I'm always a little bit cautious, so I like to make a backup on my own hard drive and also on an external hard drive, just in case, because we put a lot of time into making these cards. For instance, if we were just to add some more to this card, like back up this card and export, or this deck, we'll say this deck and export, just as a random close deletion card that doesn't really make too much sense. So we'll go back to our decks. Now we hit this little gear icon and hit export. You can choose, don't change this format. This is the Anki deck format. You can include specifically which decks you want to export. In this case, we're only going to export our own little default deck. Scheduling information is if you've been studying the cards and you want to make sure that you keep the age of the cards and how much you've studied them intact. The media is if you include any photos in the cards, and then we'll hit export. We'll save it to our documents. And there you go. So if I was to open up my documents, default, here it is. So there it is, default, an Anki document. So we can open it up and then it will actually create a default deck, although it was all, it didn't actually import into this one because it was just a copy. But there it is. So then you can move it around and treat it like any other file. Next, we'll go back to kind of looking at the studying. As you might have noticed here, it says due is 2 and new is 18. So this is the maximum, default maximum that you can study in a day, which is 20 new cards, which frankly, it's not bad, but I personally like to increase this number to kind of an arbitrarily high amount. And the way you do that is you click the gear icon and hit options. And you have the option to change the settings on your reviews. So for new cards in this tab, you can see that the steps and minutes are 1 and 10. So this would be like if you clicked again, or like as in you don't know very well, or good, so 10 minutes. So you can customize this, so you can change it to like 20 or whatever, but I like to keep it at 1 and 10. This is the order. it doesn't really matter which one. This is kind of self-explanatory. This new cards per day, I like to set to a really, really arbitrarily high number that I probably won't get to, like 999. The graduating interval is if you hit good twice on a new card, it'll give you the option of seeing it again in one day. Easy interval would be 4 days in this by default. Bury the new related new cards until the next day, I think is a good thing to click on. Just because if there's two different cards, like for instance with the San Diego and California card, if you just studied San Diego is in California, you don't need to see blank is in California, which is San Diego, and San Diego is in blank necessarily the same day. So I like to have this on. Under reviews, very similar thing. So once you have a really mature deck where you have a bunch of reviews, it default maxes to 200. I like to again set this to arbitrarily high. The easy bonus and interval modifiers change kind of the grade at which the cards become further spaced out. I leave these on the default settings. The maximum interval I do like to change. So this is when you keep studying a card again and again and again, and you know it really well, when is the maximum possible amount of time that it could possibly be seen. And this I think is just ridiculously high. For most of my cards, I actually set it to 90 days, so 3 months, which I think is a good amount of time for my brain because I don't remember everything all the time, and I do need occasional refreshers. So even if a card's really easy, I think it only takes 1 second to look at it and know what it is. So it doesn't really consume that much more time if I was to set the maximum interval to something smaller like 90 days, which I think is an adequate amount. Of course, you can use your discretion and set it to whatever you like. Similarly, I like to click on the bury the related reviews until the next day, similar to the new cards. So lapses is when you get things wrong, or if you don't, if you're looking at a more mature card, how frequently can you get it wrong, and how much time in between. So the one setting I really want to highlight here is this thing called leech. Leech is when you miss a card enough times, the Anki program actually detects that you don't know this card very well. And what that means is maybe the card isn't designed well. Maybe it's a terrible question that you just can't keep getting wrong, and you should look at it. The leech action is, well, in this case, the leech threshold is 8. So once you've missed a card 8 times, it marks it as a leech. The leech action is what the Anki program will do with that card once it's marked as a leech. In this case, it's default set to suspend card, meaning you won't see this card anymore. I like to set it as tag. This way you're able to view your leech cards and you can kind of intermittently look at them and just confirm that you do think that they're leeched, and you can modify them to become a little bit easier or a little more add a little more clarity, so it no longer is a bad card that you keep missing because clearly the way it's worded is not working out. The general answer timers I don't think is particularly helpful. But sometimes I look away from my Anki for a long time because I'm distracted or I'm doing it while working out or ordering food or something. So I don't really rely on the timer at all. So I just set this to something really high. And this is kind of pointless. And as you can see with those new settings, our new card setting is quite high. So it's at 9,000 or 999 like we set. And there's a lot of cards to study. So it can seem daunting, but Anki is meant to be used over a long period of time. There is no need to be afraid of this high number of cards because once you get into the rhythm with Anki, it really does help make massive amounts of information like this stick in your brain, believe it or not. So the next thing I'm going to teach you is add-ons, which really help take Anki to the next level in terms of its capabilities. And the way you access add-ons is you go to Tools and click Add-ons. And I already have this add-on installed, but in order for you to get those, you can hit this Get Add-ons button and hit Browse Add-ons, unless you know the code of a specific add-on that you're looking for, and they are available online, so you can search them up if you already know what you want. But otherwise, you can hit Browse Add-ons, and it automatically takes you to this page. So you can sort them in by the ratings when they were modified. But there are some really amazing ones, and like I said, I already downloaded image occlusion, so I'll show you how that works. And I think that's probably the most useful add-on of all the ones I've seen. Oh, here it is. Yeah, probably the most useful add-on of everything that I've seen, because what it does is it takes a picture and you're able to use that almost as a closed deletion. So you don't you can block out certain parts of the photo and test yourself on those. And it works really well for things like studying anatomy, where you have a label on a certain structure and you want to know what that structure is. So it would be best for me just to quickly demonstrate that for you. So once you've downloaded the add-on, you'll notice that there's a little button here that says Add Image Occlusion when you're in the Add menu. So if you click that, it'll prompt you to choose a photo in order to make an occlusion out of. So if you choose a photo, which I've already selected this one here, it'll pop up something that looks like this. And what you can do is just make sure that this is selected, this rectangle, and you can block out specific areas that you want to test yourself on and make them into basically, like I said, closed deletion cards or fill in the blank. So there are different ways that you can make cards out of this. You can choose to do hide all, guess one, in which all of them will be blocked off, and then you just you guess one of them. Or it can be hide one, guess one, meaning that it'll show the answers for all of these except for the one that you're guessing. So if I just demonstrate what each one of these look like. So when you click these buttons, it automatically adds those cards. They got added here. So if we preview this card, ta-da, so this is what we're testing ourselves on. So we can view the answer. This is the corpus callosum, which connects the two sides of the brain. You can actually click toggle mask 2 once you're viewing the answer in this version of image occlusion, and it'll show all the other answers. So it's really quite nice. So this is the hide all, guess one. And these that I made are going to be the hide one, show all. So similar concept here. If you want to guess multiple cards or these fill in the blanks at once, you can link them together. So just select a few, like by holding Shift, and then you can click this button to group elements. So when you make a card, this is going to be one element. Instead of this being three separate things you guess, it'll blank out all three together, so you can guess those together. If you click from the mask editor to the field section, you can put a header, which I recommend doing, just because it will make it easier to find your image occlusion cards later. So this will be, say, brain anatomy. A footer is something that will go at the bottom. And similarly, you can put extra sections there and some tags on your cards as well. So we'll hide all, guess one. So you can see now it'll say brain anatomy at the top, and you can see that these were grouped together as one element. So with that in mind, let me go ahead and show you what my personal Anki deck looks like. And you can kind of get a sense of what a mature Anki deck might look like. So in this case, I have my dermatology deck and all these sub decks within it. You can see there's a variety of cards that are due, a bunch that are new. I probably haven't been studying nearly as much as I've been making cards. I've just been quite busy recently. So, we can click right into it and study any one of these decks. For instance, we'll go with pruritus, which means itching, by the way. Oh, I spelled it with an IS. Rookie mistake. It's a US, so I'll have to change that later. So here's a type of question for me. So yeah, and as you can see, the time periods are very different from if this was a completely new card. Hard being 1.2 months, good being 2.9 months, and again, my maximum setting is at 3 months, and I think this is quite easy. But yeah, so this concludes part 2 of the Anki tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something from it, even if you are a seasoned Anki vet. There's always so much that this software has to offer. I'm constantly learning new things about it and how to be more efficient and how to make better cards. If you like this video, please consider hitting like, leave a comment below letting me know what you think, what else you would like to see, and then hit subscribe in addition to the bell icon, just to make sure you get notified whenever I quite infrequently upload videos. But I do hope to be putting out more content in the future that'll be helpful not only to medical students and to residents, but the general public as well. I do also start wanting to focus on some skincare and really sharing my knowledge in dermatology that I find is a really fascinating field. So if you're interested in any of those topics, again, consider subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.